The key thing I would love you to walk away from to this webinar today is to understand that your menopause and perimenopause are not a bad thing. Elephants, orcas, and blue whales go through the menopause, and what majestic and amazing creatures those are. And the reason we believe that that's why they go through that post-menopause life is to ensure that the rest of the family group thrives. When you've got postmenopausal females bringing their giving their wisdom and their strength and their knowledge and their sense of community, we can thrive. But it's important that we meet our needs, we tune into our cycles, and we know who we are next. There's an identity shift that comes with menopause and midlife that needs addressing. It's like a new opportunity, new link with yourself. So what I wanted to do, but almost before I even start talking about these big emotions that come up in the menopause phase, is just to ask us just to very briefly just stop and be still. So I get you to, wherever you are, if you can sit still with your feet grounded on the floor, a hand resting on your thigh, and potentially just dropping your eyes, gaze down, or closing your eyes, and just for a minute, take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Notice how you're connected to the ground, how you're stable in your chair. Notice how supported you feel. Deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. One more of those. In and out. And then just allow yourself to breathe normally and with your eyes closed or your gaze down. I'd love it if you could imagine yourself about 20 years into the future. So in my case, that's me viewing myself as a 70-year-old. And I want you to view yourself 20 years into the future and just think about where you are, who you want to be with, what's going to be, what kind of things will you be doing, and how you want to feel in your body. I want this to be an optimistic and positive view. And just see if you can briefly connect with that image. Imagine yourself saying hi to this future version of you, and maybe even asking her how it is that she got there and what she could do, what advice she might give you. And then you can just say thank you to her and just come back into thinking about your breath in through the nose, coming back into your body, wriggling your toes, opening your eyes, just gently shaking your shoulder. And what I in my work with clients, I take them through a much longer version of that. But being able to connect to our longer term version of ourselves in a positive way can help us create positive momentum for the long term. I wanted to talk about rage as one of the big emotions of the menopause transition. So go back, Ashmi. So there we go. That this is something that I have has come up with clients quite often. They come to me perhaps because they want, right, I need to get in, I need to be better about looking after my health. I need to get back into habits around eating well and moving more. But then we talk about their emotional moment where they are right now. And often this moment of when they have that anger and that trigger happy temper and a red mist that comes down can feel quite shaming. So perhaps losing your temper with your children when they're not getting ready for school, or you've got a really irritating colleague at work who just will not listen to what it is that you're trying to get across, or simply sitting in traffic and somebody cuts across you and behaves like an idiot. And suddenly that emotion is enormous. That anger, that rage is enormous. And what this is isn't a character flaw. It isn't a sudden change of who it is that you are. It's an opportunity for us to get curious about, okay, it's an opportunity for us to get curious about how we an opportunity for us to get curious about who we are in that moment and how we can shift and change. So, so for example, I had a client who came to me who was really struggling with um, with her with her hormones, with her work, with her health, clients' health, with her children's health issues, feeling like she was juggling the impact of an NHS job, plus some self-employed work, plus family issues. And what she'd noticed is that she kept turning into kind of this whirling dervish, this angry woman, and she didn't recognize herself in that moment, and that's not who she wanted to be for the long term. So we looked at what the triggers could be. So some of that was around blood sugar, some of it was around her hormonal cycle, so tracking her cycle was helpful. We looked at the moments in the day when she was more likely to get angry and thought about, well, what has she had enough breakfast, has she had perhaps too much caffeine, was that triggering this high adrenaline response that then meant that her brain couldn't respond from a calm place. um and so and then but also we talked about boundary issues, like, so one of the issues was that in her NHS work there was a sense that she was being required to see more and more patients, we talked about this at the beginning, in less and less time, so she wasn't able to serve her patients in the way that she wanted to, and she was feeling very restricted by when she was and wasn't allowed to take time off to deal with her children's childcare issues. So we worked on creating a vision for what would work really well for her, what kind of life she wanted. So we took almost the kids and the NHS out of the equation, the work out of the equation, just briefly, to help her to understand what a more ideal life would look like, where the boundaries were, what kind of time she wanted for herself, what kind of time she wanted with her family. And she wanted more time, more holidays. She wanted time to visit her family who lived in another country. She wanted time to be able to spend more time. She wanted to start running again. And then we found identified those things that were very important, and then layered it in with the work and the children's healthcare and her husband's willingness to support her. She asked for more support around the home, and she also started putting in boundaries with her NHS work. And then we worked together for about 4 or 5 months. And when I caught up with her a few years later, what she'd done is she had gone fully self-employed. So she had control over her schedule. She had every Wednesday off. Her kids' issues were resolved in a really brilliant way because some of them were connected to her own stress levels. She was seeing her family more often, and she was less fearful of getting older, because underneath this was also, she'd lost her dad when he was 50, and another one of her I think it was her brother-in-law had also died quite suddenly when he was 50, and she was coming up to her 50th birthday. So we'd released some fear, and we got curious about the triggers, and they were multiple. So there was a hormonal element, there was a blood sugar element, and then there was a boundaries element. So what I'm wanting you to walk away with here is to notice that if rage and those big emotions feel like they are changing your definition of yourself, or feel like they're out of character, to give yourself the time and the space to get curious about what's going on there and what the triggers might be, because it's really powerful when you do.